Welcome to Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. In Sydney, Australia, a father and son killed at least 15 people in a mass shooting at a Hanukkah celebration on Bondi Beach Sunday. 42 people were injured. At least 27 remain in the hospital. Victims included a 10-year-old girl, 2 rabbis, and a Holocaust survivor who died while shielding his wife from bullets. Police say the massacre was carried out by a 50-year-old father and his 24-year-old son. The father, Sajid Akram, was shot dead by police. The son, Naveed Akram, was arrested after being tackled by a fruit vendor named Ahmed El-Ahmed. Footage circulating widely showed Ahmed grabbing Akram as he fired on a crowd before taking the gun from him and pointing it at him. The mass shooting was the deadliest attack in Australia since the 1996 Port Arthur massacre. This is Levi Wolf, the rabbi from the Central Synagogue at Bondi.
As a Jewish people, we will not be silenced. As a Jewish people, our light will not be dimmed. And the holiday of Hanukkah will remind us and the world that a little bit of light dispels a lot of darkness. And what we need to do is add in our light.
We'll go to Sydney, Australia, to speak with journalist Anthony Lowenstein, who serves on the advisory committee of the Jewish Council of Australia. That story after headlines. In Rhode Island, the search for a gunman who killed 2 students and injured 9 others at Brown University Saturday has entered its 3rd day, after authorities released a person of interest detained early Sunday. 7 of the students remain hospitalized in critical condition. A shelter-in-place order around the Brown campus was lifted early Sunday morning when the person of interest was arrested. Meanwhile, the university has canceled all classes and tests for the rest of the semester. According to the Gun Violence Archive, Saturday's attack was the 389th mass shooting in the United States this year. There have since been 3 other mass shootings. We'll hear from one of the survivors, Mia Tretta, who survived another shooting when she was in high school. Filmmaker Rob Reiner and his wife, Michelle Singer Reiner, were found dead with stab wounds Sunday afternoon in their home in Los Angeles. Their deaths are being investigated as homicides, according to law enforcement. Reiner was a longtime actor and director, was known for his films The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, and A Few Good Men. He rose to fame as one of the stars of Norman Lear's All in the Family. Reiner was also a prominent donor and supporter of Democratic candidates. Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass said, quote, "An acclaimed actor, director, producer, writer, and engaged political activist, Rob always used his gifts in service of others. He and Michelle fought for early childhood development and marriage equality, working to overturn Proposition 8. They were true champions for LGBTQ+ rights," the mayor said. President Trump Saturday vowed to retaliate against ISIS after 3 Americans, 2 U.S. soldiers and their interpreter, were killed in an attack in Palmyra in central Syria. They're the first U.S. casualties in Syria since Syrian rebels toppled the regime of Bashar al-Assad a year ago. According to the Pentagon, the attack comes as the U.S. is reducing its troops in Syria from 2,000 at the beginning of the year to around 1,000 today. Hamas has confirmed the death of senior commander Raed Saad, who was killed in an Israeli strike on Gaza City Saturday that also killed another 3 Palestinians while injuring 25 others. In response, Hamas's chief negotiator warned the assassination threatens the viability of the Gaza ceasefire and called on President Trump to ensure Israel complies with terms of the October 10th truce. Gaza's government media office reports Israel's broken terms of the U.S. U.S.-brokered ceasefire at least 738 times since it took effect October 10th, killing at least 386 Palestinians while severely restricting shipments of food, shelter, medicine, fuel, and other basic goods into Gaza. Meanwhile, Israel's Security Cabinet has approved plans to formally recognize 19 settlement outposts in the occupied West Bank that are illegal, even under Israeli law. Israeli media reports the plan was promoted by far-right cabinet member Bezalel Smotrich and coordinated in advance with the Trump administration. The Palestinian Colonization and Wall Resistance Commission condemned the move as, quote, a dangerous escalation that exposes the true intentions of the occupation government to entrench a system of annexation, apartheid, and full Judaization of Palestinian land, unquote. In Morocco, at least 37 people have been killed in flash floods triggered by torrential rains in the coastal province of Safi. According to authorities, at least 70 homes and businesses in the historic old city were flooded after just 1 hour of heavy rain. Morocco is currently experiencing heavy rain and snowfall on the Atlas Mountains after 7 years of drought emptied some of its main reservoirs. A newly unsealed warrant shows the U.S. Coast Guard seized the oil tanker Skipper near Venezuela just before the warrant was set to expire last Wednesday. The warrant was signed by a U.S. magistrate judge in November, was obtained under federal law that authorizes the U.S. government to seize all assets that are, quote, engaged in planning or perpetrating any federal crime of terrorism, unquote. This comes as the New York Times reports the oil tanker seized by the U.S. was part of the Venezuelan government's effort to support Cuba. The Skipper was reportedly carrying nearly 2 million barrels of Venezuelan oil and was headed to the Cuban port of Matanzas. This is Cuban President Miguel Díaz-Canel.
Cuba denounces and condemns this return to gunboat diplomacy, this threatening diplomacy, the scandalous theft, one more in the already long list of looting of Venezuelan state assets. It is unacceptable interference in the international affairs of a nation that set the course for the independence of America.
Meanwhile, the U.S. military commander who oversaw the Pentagon's attacks on boats in the Pacific and the Caribbean, Admiral Alvin Halsey, said he'll retire at the end of the year. The U.S. has provided no evidence backing claims the boats were used for drug trafficking. In Chile, far-right candidate José Antonio Cast was elected president Sunday. Cast has vowed to crack down on crime and immigration and has called for a mass deportation campaign. He's also praised the U.S.-backed military dictatorship of Augusto Pinochet, saying, quote, if he were alive, he would vote for me, unquote. Iranian security forces have rearrested the human rights activist and Nobel Peace Laureate Narges Mohammadi after a violent crackdown on a memorial service for a human rights lawyer who died under suspicious circumstances. Mohammadi was reportedly hospitalized twice after she and other activists were beaten by Iranian forces that used tear gas to disperse a crowd that gathered Friday in the eastern city of Mashhad to remember Khosrow Ali-Khordi, the human rights lawyer found dead in his office earlier this month. Mohammadi and other protesters viewed his death as suspicious and potentially state-linked killing. In 2023, Mohammadi was awarded the Nobel Peace Prize while incarcerated in Tehran's notorious Evin prison before her temporary release on medical grounds a year ago. She had had several heart attacks in prison. She's already spent over a decade behind bars for her human rights work, including opposition to capital punishment and Iran's obligatory hijab laws. We'll have more on this story later in the broadcast. A court in Hong Kong has convicted media tycoon and pro-democracy campaigner Jimmy Lai on charges he colluded with foreign governments in violation of a sweeping national security law imposed by Beijing. He faces life imprisonment at a sentencing scheduled early next year. Ahead of his conviction, Lai's family expressed alarm over his deteriorating health, including dramatic weight loss, while he was jailed in solitary confinement. Meanwhile, Hong Kong's last major opposition party has officially disbanded under pressure from Chinese authorities. Leaders of the Hong Kong Democratic Party said they were told to liquidate the organization or face severe consequences, including possible arrest. This is the party's former chairwoman, Emily Lau.
The current political environment is getting worse and worse. Many journalists have been arrested and many citizens are very afraid. Many people have already left Hong Kong while many others still fear being arrested. This is the situation now. Under such circumstances, the Democratic Party is on the verge of disappearing.
Belarus released 123 political prisoners Saturday, including Nobel Peace Prize winner Ales Bialyatsky and leading opposition figure Maria Kolesnikova, as the Trump administration announced it would lift sanctions on Belarusian potash. President Trump's envoy, John Cole, told Reuters about 1,000 political prisoners left in Belarus could be released in the coming months. This is Viktor Babarika, a former Belarusian presidential candidate who was freed over the weekend.
Those who came out or those who speak publicly should not talk about how they were or what they felt, because in reality, there are still many people inside the system who, depending on what we say, will usually face negative consequences.
Minnesota Democratic Congresswoman Ilhan Omar says federal immigration agents pulled over her son on Saturday and asked him to provide proof of his U.S. citizenship. Omar told TV station WCCO the incident came just one day after she warned her son to be careful in parts of Minneapolis that are home to large populations of Somali Americans, whom President Trump recently described in a racist tirade as garbage.
I had to remind him just how worried I am, because all of these areas that they're talking about are areas where he could possibly find himself in, and they are racially profiling. They are looking for young men who look Somali that they think are undocumented.
Meanwhile, a man and woman in a Minneapolis suburb are facing charges of assaulting a federal officer after they drove away with a Homeland Security investigations agent in the passenger seat of their car following an immigration stop. The agent reportedly pointed a gun at the car's driver, while her companion dialed 911 from the back seat to report they were taking the agent to a police station. The driver was arrested outside the station while federal agents chased the man into a grocery store and tased him. Democrats on the House Oversight Committee have released dozens of photographs showing the late serial sex offender Jeffrey Epstein with high-profile celebrities and politicians, including Presidents Bill Clinton and Donald Trump. The photos were selected from a cache of more than 95,000 turned over to the committee by Epstein's estate. 3 of the photos show Trump. In one, he appears next to Epstein at a 1997 Victoria's Secret event. Another image shows a cartoon likeness of Trump on packages with the caption, "I'm huge," next to a sign reading, "Trump condom, $4.50. The pictures also show Epstein with Woody Allen, former Prince Andrew, Richard Branson, and Steve Bannon, among others. The National Trust for Historic Preservation is suing to block President Trump from constructing a 90,000-square-foot ballroom at the White House. The lawsuit states, quote, "No president is legally allowed to construct a ballroom on public property without giving the public the opportunity to weigh in," unquote. Trump's $300 million ballroom is being funded by wealthy individuals and corporations that include Amazon, Lockheed Martin, and Palantir Technologies. And a JetBlue Airways pilot says he narrowly avoided a mid-air collision with a U.S. military aircraft that entered his flight path while taking off from Curacao on Friday. The pilot said the U.S. military aircraft was headed towards Venezuelan airspace. And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.